Oh, that is a good one. I like that. Who should attend backlog refinement meetings? Oh, get everybody in. Actually, it's not far off the answer that I would give. Ideally, backlog refinement is about sharing understanding of what's coming up throughout the whole team. Everybody. Okay? So the best way to do it is to get everybody in the room. The person with the problem, be their customer or the product owner or an expert or whoever. Okay? And the people who are going to solve that problem. The developers. Whatever their job title is, they're all likely developing a product together. Getting them all in the same place would be the ideal. Okay? Because then they can all hear that conversation. They can ask the questions with the expert on the problem there and then. Get it all answered. What a wonderful place to be. So that's what we want. You're not always going to be able to do that. Okay? So what we're trying to do when we don't have that ideal is make sure we have enough people involved in that conversation that you can bring that knowledge back to the team, that you can share information. If one person hears it all, okay, you're going to get one perspective. Okay? And it might be a good perspective. It might not. You're never going to know because you've only got one. There's no way of comparing and contrasting. So at a minimum, you want two members of the developers and somebody who can articulate the problem coming together. Very often called the three amigos, though I know some people aren't a fan of that title. What we want to do is bring somebody who understands the problem and a couple of people who can solve that problem, preferably with different perspectives, different jobs within the team, coming together to have that conversation about what's important. Okay? And we get a few things there. We get those two perspectives, those three perspectives, if we include the customer's perspective, coming into that conversation, which is going to make it richer. We're going to ask more rounded questions because we're all thinking from our own disciplines. Okay? But also we get the advantage that we all misremember things. Okay? Nothing we can do about that. We could just record everything and have everybody listen back to the recording, but that might take some time. So how about instead I recall our conversation through my ears, you recall it through your ears, and when we share, we're both there and we share together, right? And when I say something you don't agree with, or vice versa, we can correct and we can discuss. Because what I heard is what I heard, and it's what I remember, and it's the same for you. Neither of us is wrong, but as we hear the words people use, we're going to apply our own experiences, our own context over the top. And in doing so, we're going to subtly change some of it. Okay? And if you've got 2, 3, 4 people who all heard the same thing, they're all going to remember it in slightly different ways. Where they all agree, they agree. That's nice and easy. But where they differ, it gets interesting. Because that's where the space for ambiguity lies. That's where we may want to shore it up. If you and I disagree on something and we can't agree, we know we need to talk to the customer again to get it clearer, to nail that part of the topic down. Maybe it's important, maybe it's not, I don't know. But what's clear is we don't understand it well enough yet. Okay? So ideally, you've got the whole team doing this, but if you've only got a few people, okay, be aware of that. Okay, it's going to come up, and it's going to come up even if you have the whole team. At times, we're all going to go, yeah, that made absolute sense. And I don't know about you, but I always think of the magic door I had at university. There was one lecture hall. Every time I walked through it, I forgot everything that happened in that lecture. Not a word stayed in my head. Okay? Stuff happens. We get confused, we get lost, we get distracted. What we want to do is increase our chances that collectively we remember that conversation, the important parts of it, so that we can bring it together and solve the right problem. And if we don't remember it, we can highlight that we don't remember it in those ongoing conversations, get the right people back into the conversation, ideally into the same room, but I'll accept a video call these days, and have it again and clarify. And that's the point of product backlog refinement, is clarifying our understanding about what the problem is. How are we going to solve it comes later. It's an important part, but you can't solve a problem you don't understand. So spend your product backlog refinement time understanding that. Get as many people into that conversation as makes sense. As I said, ideally it's everybody, but there are many pulls on our time. Okay, and it's not always possible. Sometimes it's not particularly welcomed. Okay, some developers don't like doing it, and maybe they're not adding anything to the conversation. Okay, I have some qualms, but I'll let you make the compromises with your teams as you see best. What I don't want is the team leads disappearing. So, that lead developer and that lead tester and that lead analyst all going together and huddling together. No, that's not what we're talking about in shared perspective. Because then we're just moving it into those blessed few who have the lead title, okay, and they're going to share to their people. Right? I want representation across the team. So if you do have leads, okay, it's a thing. Make sure it's not only the leads involved in product backlog refinement. Make sure everybody has an opportunity to get involved, because everybody's going to ask slightly different questions. Okay? People with experience skip over the obvious because it's obvious, they know the answers. People without that experience will ask the naive questions. And in asking those, they can uncover things that those of us with more experience would never even consider. So make sure you have a blend of people, but make sure you have multiple people. This is not the role of the business analyst. I've come across too many teams who look at product backlog refinement and go, PA's job, off you go. No, because any one person is going to share their lone perspective and there's no ability to compare it. Check for discrepancies or misunderstandings or ambiguities. So have a few people in any meeting. You can run it once a week, you can run it many times a week, that's up to you. Play around with it, learn what works best for you and your teams, okay? But please do product backlog refinement. If you've got to this point in the video, I hope you've enjoyed it. If so, a like would be appreciated. If you want to hear more from me, more answers to questions that maybe you've got in the Agile world, please subscribe to the channel. And if you've got a question that you really want answered, drop it in the comments. I promise we'll get around to it. Thank you.